It has been so long. It's been so long since I've been live. And I'm going live with this topic because I've had it in my notes, like in my YouTube video ideas file for a while. And I've got some good notes in there. So I'm going to be referencing them as I talk about this topic. But I realized I have a lot of ideas. And so instead of like only having them be videos, I can make some of them be lives because I'm trying to figure out a way to start going live more regularly. I'm thinking like once a month with the Patreon after party to follow. That's my current vision. So we'll see how that goes. Also, I want to start by saying, I see someone has joined. Hello. I want to start by saying that I usually am not someone who actually joins other creators live. So I've only really known the live experience as being the one hosting. And I joined this dance live. Oh, hey, is your name Oshun? I feel like that's like isn't that like an African deity? If so, great name. Oh my gosh, I love how many eyes are in your eye. I can really feel the enthusiasm of it. Um, oh wow, that's beautiful. So I joined this live for the Fitness Marshall, which is like a dance workout YouTube channel on here. And I realized especially when you really like admire or really like a creator, there actually is a very deep intensity to leaving a comment, to saying hi in a live, like because it is truly a very passive experience of watching YouTube. You can just sit back, relax, and let the creators bless you with their energy and with their wisdom or with their humor or whatever else. But to actually engage and be in dialogue is a whole different thing. And like it literally like activates your nervous system to be engaged in a live stream. So I just want to name that for the folks who are here and are like, I'm not going to engage with you, girl. I'm going to sit back and watch. I'm just like, I get it. All right. It can be a very intense experience. So, the topic, which is finding your purpose. And what inspired me to want to talk about this is I was having a call with someone who was a friend of mine, lives in LA. They're a creator, and they were kind of just, going through their journey through some of the ups and downs because creative work wasn't really flowing, and they had like other things they were kind of doing, but they didn't want to leave their passion, right? So just kind of processing these things with me. And this is someone that I hadn't spoken to in a while. And so it was really interesting to just have the conversation in general because it'd been easily like over a year. And there was interest on their part in maybe like having coaching be one of their like streams of revenue, essentially. Um, and so I was kind of just like sort of sharing more about my experience and some of the realities too of coaching, because I think some people are like, oh, I'll just do some coaching and I'll get some money. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's kind of a whole thing. But at some point during the conversation, this friend asked me, do you feel like you're living your purpose? And in the context of that conversation, and this is something that I find happens pretty regularly and often with people who I know, but they hit me up out of the blue, is that they want, or maybe this is a projection. Maybe let me name that. But it feels as if they usually want to learn about coaching and learn about that, but they also are maybe just a little bit kind of down and out, and they want that motivation, that encouragement, that reminder of their power and their light and their purpose and their vision and the reality of what's possible for them, right? Because they've maybe forgotten, right? And what I named for her during this conversation was, when I'm in conversations like this and on calls like this, I do really feel like I'm living my purpose, because it feels like, my purpose is about pouring love on people and encouraging people and lifting people up. And it feels genuinely so good to do it. And I pretty consistently can get worked up to the point of tears. Like I choose not to because I don't know the capacity of the person I'm talking to. But if you connect me to the topic of like creativity and art, especially when I'm talking to artists and connecting to like their desire and their drive and their passion around being creative, and I just connect to, and I can feel it's something that's really genuine for them. As I'm encouraging them, it's almost like I am holding back tears because I agree and feel it so strongly. And as a, I don't know if audience member is the right term, but as someone who would receive the gift of their art, I really feel so grateful. And as someone who has known what it's like to be sad and be down and go to media, go to the movies, go to things and have that be the thing that gets me through or lifts me up. So I have such a genuine gratitude to creatives for doing that and for helping me out in that way. And so that's truly when I feel like I'm in my purpose. And I've been able, hi, Dana, I love you, Dana. I feel like I've been able to like leverage that love for work, in terms of being a coach and in terms of making YouTube videos and being creative in that way. But I don't think, your purpose is necessarily what it is that you do for work. I was hanging out with Richard Rudd. He's the guy who created Gene Keys, which is it's kind of like a spinoff of like human design, which is kind of like a spinoff on like the I Ching, which is like an ancient, um, Eastern. I don't have any more research than that, y'all. Ancient Eastern philosophy, something, 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 right? And he talks a lot about purpose, and he talks about how your purpose isn't what you do necessarily in terms of your work, but it's how you do it. It's how you move in the world, and that's actually like what you can bring yourself back to, because you know usually people are sort of the same no matter what. Or I shouldn't say that. For me, I aspire to be the same no matter what circumstance I'm in, right? If I'm talking on YouTube, if I'm talking to my friend, if I'm talking to my sister, if I'm at work, no matter where I am, I have a frequency that's like the chimney frequency. I was just thinking about how there's this idea of Christ consciousness. So it's like Jesus Christ is like a frequency level of consciousness. And that's something that we can aspire to. I was thinking about how like every single person is also a certain level of consciousness and also has a frequency. And that's what makes being alive so cool, is that you get to meet all these different like frequencies. And you're like, oh, this is how you vibrate. And then when there's resonance, it's like, this is so cool. We're different people, but we're vibrating. I was like, oh, I am a chimney frequency. I am a chimney frequency. And I can only hope that I become successful to the point that when I move on, people look back at my videos and they're just like, wow, that chimney frequency. And it becomes a part of the vernacular. It becomes a part of the language of our society, being on the chimney frequency. And I think it's important that we aspire. I think that's what we should aspire to, is that kind of global impact. So I'm going to refer to my notes because I also did write a few things. Let me know if you have any like reflections in the comments as well. But one thing I want to do is not like outsource the content of this live to y'all, because I'm just like, the point is not to have to like give me content that I can respond to. Though I do think that's what makes this fun, because the thing you say, I will read it and I will probably reference it. And it's really cool to be a part of creating something with someone. But you don't have to do that. If you want, you can put this on while cleaning your house, as many as many folks seem to do, which is great. I don't feel a way about that at all. Not at all. I noted here that purpose is a frequency that magnetizes experiences and people to you who are aligned, which I think is really great. And I gotta say, this is like a high level reflection. I was looking over my notes and I was like, wow, this is great. But also I was feeling into this idea of authority I kind of reference this in my YouTube video and like in a YouTube short I made on the same topic. But this idea of like being an authority who's like, hey y'all, so this is how it is. This is how it works. This is what purpose is. This is how you find it. And it's just like, why? Like, how am I suddenly an authority figure on that for you? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. And as I'm like deepening my spiritual journey, hi Josephine, I hope you're good. I still have not been out to DC, by the way. Like the way I'm very much like identified with Maryland as a frequency. It just feels like it's literally like an hour away via Lyft and Mark train. But I'm just like, I live in Maryland. I live in Maryland now. But it would be cool to meet up, is my way of saying that. Yeah, as I feel like I was connecting to something regarding purpose. Let me see if I can bring my energy back to it. In the meantime, I'm just going to sip some water. Josephine says that she loves my laughter. She loves my laughter. Thanks. I was just thinking about how, if you were dating someone and you didn't like their laugh, Like, can you imagine how terrible that would be? Like, them being in joy would be, like, grating to you. Like, there's no way that could work. Also, I'm a big Ted Lasso fan, and I just finished the season. And in the 3rd season, there's this character who has, like, a really big, like, kinda laugh. And I was watching it, and I was like, I felt very seen. I was like, "I have a loud ass laugh." Anyway, purpose. But yeah, let's talk about what I was saying about how it magnetizes people and opportunities to you that are very aligned. Um, and I something that just got sort of magnetized to me, and it's interesting because so I just won a grant basically, and I applied for a grant and I won a grant. I want to make a whole separate video about that. And when I was sharing it on my Instagram, I referenced how some of my coaching clients sort of planted the seeds in me to apply for this grant. Um, but then I was reflecting on how I actually had a friend who, back when I first moved to New York, which was like a year ago, she had two separate grants. And she was saying to me then, like, oh, yeah, like you can apply for all these grants, da da da. And I kind of did some research focusing it on like the topics of creativity and things like that. Didn't really find anything. And so I kind of moved on from it. And then I had a coaching client who she herself had won a grant and the grant was to create this documentary. And so part of like our coaching call was about, basically getting herself organized to like execute the pre and post production of this documentary. And so so that in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's like the seed is like, oh, yeah, people are out here getting grants to like make art. Like that's dope. But I kind of didn't think anything of it. I just like kept on moving on with my life. Right. Then I had another coaching client. We did like the alignment calls, right? And she wanted to do the full package of coaching, but it cost thousands of dollars. And so she was trying to figure out basically how she could afford it. And so she applied for a grant. And I was like, oh, she let me know. She was like, oh, I applied for this grant and I wrote you in as my coach, so if I get the grant, I'd be able to move forward. And so she got that grant. And I was just like, okay, grants is a thing. And it's even then it just kind of percolated in the back of my mind. And then I was finally just talking to a friend, and this friend mentioned this thing about a grant. And I was like, grants. And then I think it was tied to her state. And that's when I kind of put it together because the grant that I got is through the state of Maryland, which to me is so funny because I feel like a huge part of my journey is like I live in Maryland and I feel a way about it. I feel a way about it. I feel a way about it. And I feel like that's such a metaphor for like literally blocking blessings because Maryland is like, can we give you money? And I'm like, no, I feel a way about even fucking being here. Sorry for the language. Now I mean that more genuinely. If you've been following my channel, you know that I used to really love to curse. And now I'm more genuinely, not just because of the YouTube algorithm and the censorship. I now more genuinely don't want to be cursing. And it's because of this thing that I read, and it was talking about how words are encoded with energy. So if you think about like all of the times anyone has they use the reference of like when someone says the hail, yeah, it's called the Hail Mary. I'm thinking of like the football, and I'm like, no, it's first about Mary, mother of Jesus. When someone says the Hail Mary or any kind of mantra or anything like that, part of the power is that you're tapping into every other person who's ever said it and like that energy of like love and compassion and mercy and all these things. And so when you think about curse words, usually when people say curse words, there's a different kind of frequency, maybe around anger or shaming or whatever else. And so that's kind of the frequency you're tapping into when you use those words. And I do think some curse words, some of the more broader ones, they're used in all types of fun and maybe even sexy situations. But I do think there is something to like that energetic component. So I'm like, I guess if there's an option between doing something or not doing something that brings me like closer or further away from like a loving energy, let me do the one that brings me closer. And one thing I noticed, I don't know what the context was. Maybe I was watching like a TV show or listening to a podcast or something. I think it was I don't know what it was, but the person like was using curse words and it literally, I was just like, like I literally was like, why are you calling me these names? Like it felt so like personal and like aggressive. And I was like, ooh. And I was like, oh, maybe that's what it sounds like. So, okay. Josephine is saying, "Ooh, you're feeling the calling to go to Montgomery County or Baltimore for adventuring." Yes, going to Baltimore for adventures. Yes. Love that. Love that. You can find adventure wherever you go. Speaking of adventure, I just rewatched that movie Adventureland that came out in like 2018. I think, yeah, or 2008, 2009. Yeah, because it's been a while. I don't know if that's true. I think that's true. And the whole gist of the movie is that there's this like character who wants to like move to New York and like go to grad school and da da da. Then he actually needs to earn some money for the summer, and so the movie is set in the summer while he's working at this theme park called Adventureland, which is in like Pittsburgh or something like that. And so we see how he's like looking forward to like, okay, I'm going to get this money and then live somewhere else, but actually his life is happening now, and it's a really beautiful, like expansive, like love filled experience he's having where he is now in this part of America that isn't really glamorized the way like LA and New York are. And I just, as I watched that, I felt so seen because I was like, I can really relate to being like, one day I'll live in the city, but then actually having all of these really beautiful experiences exactly where I am. So thank you for coming out here to Baltimore to do adventures. Also, as a heads up, I'm going to be hopping over to the Patreon after this. We're going to chill for like about 14, 15 more minutes. And then I'm going to do like a after party for the patrons on Zoom. So it'll be an actual, a mutual dialogue. And I have to say, like, it is truly really intense to go from being like an audience member, like a watcher, to being engaged. There's a podcast I find really funny. It's called Exploration Live, and they have a Patreon. And they've got like, I think they have like live shows on there and stuff. And stuff where I was like, okay, I'm kind of curious about that. And so I go on their Patreon just to like get a sense of how often they post and some of their content. And what I noticed is that like they posted pretty regularly, but they didn't have that many comments, people actually like engaging with what they posted. And I was like, yeah, I would feel very shy, especially when it's people you admire or think are so great. You're like, oh, hi, like it's like a really intense thing. So it just gave me a lot of perspective, which I really, really appreciate, I must say. Okay, I'm gonna pop back into my notes, see if there's any other wisdom that I want to share. Oh, this is huge. So I love saying that about something I'm about to say. So I used to first think of purpose as something that wasn't optional. Like I thought of it as something you'd have to do. And I thought of it in terms of like Moses times, biblical times, where it's like, here's how I imagined it. You're minding your business, and then God is like, hey, and God, you're like, oh, what's up, God? And God is like, so listen, I'm gonna need you to free my people. And you're like, oh, I just have a lot going on right now. And God is like, this is really important. I'm gonna really need you to do this. And you're just like, I don't know. It kind of seems scary. And like, they're not gonna listen to me. And God is like, it's fine. I got you. I'm gonna handle it. I just need you to like just be the vessel as I do this work through you. And they're just like, oh no. And it's just this real sense of not being able to say no. Like that was the impression I got from reading the Bible, is that when like Jesus calls you or puts something on your heart or on your spirit to do, you lose your sense of free will and you just have to do this thing, and the thing is going to be really hard and terrible, so it's kind of like this, like, not death sentence, but it's just like this sentence of really hard work that maybe will be for the rest of your life. And so I was, understandably really trying to avoid that because I was just like, that seems terrible. I'm not trying to do it. And I feel like what this last season has really shown me is that the things that you want to do, the things that you are called to do, the things that you like are excited to do, that you're like looking forward to, that you're drawn to, those are the things that are your purpose. And God's not putting things on your heart that you are incapable of doing or that are like out of alignment with you. They're things that you like are excited and want to do. They're things that you like are looking forward to. And it genuinely didn't occur to me. And it's been very helpful. I think in general, I've been rewriting my relationship to God into this idea of like, the old school patriarchal top down, I'm telling you what to do kind of thing, or you'll be punished, versus like a more like loving, encouraging, supportive, more like feminine energy towards God. And one energy I've really been connecting to is like this gentleness, like it's very like gentle, like, hey, maybe like a YouTube channel would be fun because you really like to talk and you like making videos. And I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Like it's these things. It's like, oh, you love encouraging people. Maybe you like do some coaching. And I'm like, I don't know. Who am I to coach? It's like, well, here, get some practice at this job. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm doing it, so it's very just like loving, and like when you talk about the flow of life and the river of life and these things, like when you get into that river, it's flowing anyway. You don't actually have to fight against it, and you don't have to, swim harder to like move further. You can just let the river of life take you. And that's like a really good sense of when you are living in your purpose and when you are in flow, is that it doesn't feel like you're forcing it. It doesn't feel like you're holding yourself back. It just feels really natural and nice. And the idea that life and purpose and work can feel good in that way, that it's not supposed to feel like you're Moses, freeing the Israelites from slavery. It can just be like, wow, like what a beautiful day. I'm really getting to spend my time how I like, with people how I like, earning money how I like. I'm not burnt out at the end. I'm not exhausted. I'm not overwhelmed or stressed. I'm just like having a really nice life. Like that's okay. And that's not something to like feel guilty about. And that's been really, really huge for me. Hi, Stephanie. Stephanie says that you joined, but that is a great description of how you used to think. I don't know what part. I'm going to assume all of it. I'm going to see what you agree with all of it. Speaking of which, how is your coaching going, Stephanie? And I'm also curious to know what kind of coaching you do. It's really been really interesting because I have people who know me from YouTube, but they're also like coaches or service providers. So then on my coaching, like IG, coaching by Chimney, there's like it's like a different way of connecting with someone when you're connecting with them as like a creator versus like being in the same business. Because it's like a different level of experience, like we have more things in common, which is really cool. And I realized like one thing, I left the super intense trauma healing program that I was in, but I realized like it is really important for me that I have a community of support around my business, around like the inner work that I am doing to make sure I'm a good coach, so that I have the capacity and the like depth and the attunement and all these different things, but also like to do like for the business side of it, to feel supported and to really understand, here's how I can be doing it better, here's some of the common challenges, and really not feel like I'm like alone in this island as a business person. So it's really cool to feel that I'm kind of fostering that a bit on Instagram, which is really nice. The Moses part, Stephanie is saying, is what she agreed with. Okay, I'm back into my notes. Purpose is rooted in abundance. Not part of me is like, are these ideas I have? Are these ideas that I had, or did I read this somewhere and I'm writing it down? Because I'm just like, wow. Wow. I think this is something I read. I'm not going to take credit for this. I think these are notes of something I consumed. And I was like, let me make a quick note. So purpose is rooted in abundance, not lack. By asking, how can I be of the greatest service to the whole? There's an understanding that you already have the resources to do that. And that framing about like, how do I be of greatest service to the whole is something that comes from Richard Rudd and from his like Gene Keys approach, and really like shifting the orientation away from like this ego mindset of like, what can I get, to this more like being, higher self mindset of like, I'm actually connected to source. So I have this infinite abundance. What can I bring down? How can I give to others? And it's been really interesting in my own life, noticing my relationship to giving and to especially giving from a place of like relationship building versus giving to give. Because I've noticed that sometimes I'm like, if I don't want a relationship with someone, I shouldn't talk to them at all. Like I shouldn't do any kind of fostering at all. And just the act of being generous itself can be seen as that. And so there's the sense of like, oh, I have to be really careful about who I give to, which is very much like a lack, scarcity, self-protection mindset versus this sort of abundant, oh, there's enough to go around kind of flowing energy. So it's been really interesting kind of channeling that. And I think part of that is tied to this sense of like wanting to make the right decision, like make the right choice, do the right thing. And then can I say, after any kind of consequence or effect that my decisions have, can I say, well, you should have made a different choice, or you should have known better, or that was your fault? Or can I say, you know what, you did the best you could, you made the best decision you could at the time, and I'm giving myself grace for anything that happens as a result of my choices? And I realized that when there's a situation where I'm like, if this goes in one direction, it's gonna be it'll be myself telling myself, I told you so, right? And so this part of me it's just the ego, but it's like trying to keep me safe and trying to keep me like okay, is saying don't help people, don't be generous, don't get involved, don't do this, like, just kind of stay in your lane. And the lane is this narrow. There's no wiggle room in this lane, right? And so it's been really an invitation for me that I've been accepting to see what it means to actually be more generous and know that I'll be okay. And I think that's like a big part of the spiritual journey is like fundamentally understanding that you're going to be okay and you don't need to be scared. All right, we've got about 4 minutes left. I've got my Zoom pulled up. I'm going to pop my Patreon into the chat because that's where I'm going to transition to in a couple of minutes if you want to come through. And let me know how you're feeling about these lives, if you like them, if you like the cadence of once a month. That feels really good for me. There is still nervousness, which is really interesting. Like it was on my spirit last night and then this morning. I was like, okay, I'm going to be going live. So it is interesting how these feelings never really go away. But as I'm here in the present moment, I've been reading Eckhart Tolle, rereading The Power of Now. As I'm actually here in the present moment, I'm like, it's talking to the cam with a handful of people watching, only an even smaller handful of whom have said hello in the chat. Feel free to say hi. Wouldn't you like to hear your name coming out of my mouth? I mean, what a blessing. What a blessing. My favorite thing about having a name that's chimney, which is so close to chimney, is that whenever any like celebrity just says the word chimney, I'm like, that's so close to how my name would sound coming out of their mouth. And I love it. Also, this is something I referenced in my creative freedom workshop that I did in the spring. I did this meditation that was about like hearing your name. I don't know if I actually did that or I cut it out. But I thought about doing this thing that involved hearing your name being said in rooms that you haven't even walked into yet. Just like hearing the murmur of your own name. People being like, oh yeah, I saw Chimby's video. I'm like, what do we think about Chimby for this project? I'm like, did you see that thing that Chimby posted? Just like people, like the energy of like Chimby, just being like murmured all around the world. And it's wild because like, that's true. Like people really watch my content all over the world and then say my name and leave comments. So it's like a really fun thing to tap into. Stephanie is like, it's beautiful hearing that. You get it, Stephanie. You get it. And what's cool about Stephanie is I feel like it's common enough that you can watch media and TV shows and get to hear it. I always wonder about that because I don't have one of those names. Like, what's it like to just be watching a TV show and just someone just says like Stephanie and you're like, is that what it's like for you? Or you're just like, what? Or is it common enough that you don't like, it doesn't like, you don't feel like they're maybe just talking to you through the television? Let me know. Let me know, Stephanie. Okay, we only have a minute left. So you only have a minute left to like say something cute in the comments. I'm going to refer to my notes one last time. Also, let me know if you want a full video on this because I actually have a lot of things that I've written down. And I like to think I've dropped nothing but gems for the last half hour. You let me know if I'm wrong about that. Okay. Oh, this is the last thing I'll share. I think it's very powerful and deep. We're allowed to say that about the things that we say about ourselves. I reference to how I feel like part of my purpose is holding space, and part of my desire to hold space and why I find it so important is because my early childhood experiences really lacked a lot of that space holding, a lot of that presence, and it was something I was really hungry for. And so now as an adult, like it's really important to me. And I try to really emphasize that and create spaces where people feel really held in that. And so just this idea that all of the negativity in our life can be like transmuted into positive, into the purpose that we have. And so there being like a seed of brilliance and love and this pearl of like greatness within every trauma, I think is really beautiful. Stephanie says, growing up, oh, everyone was Steph. But media, it's rare that you hear your name. Someone from the UK is here. Wow, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. I'm international. I'm international. Also, I think I'll start traveling again at some point. And so when that comes, I really would love to leverage this beautiful network and stay with people, get recommendations, meet up for drinks. I don't really drink, but meet up for like iced chai lattes, etc. All right, we're at the half hour mark. I'm going to head over to Zoom. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let me know if this was fun. Subscribe, give me money, all those things, all those things. Love you. Start pages here. Also, I'll pronounce your name if this is your name, and maybe it's just username. Mina Rima is Mina. Let me know if that was right. And yay, I'm glad you're able to connect with me live. Start page. Okay, bye. If you're in the Patreon, I'll see you over there. Have a beautiful weekend. And thank you. Just late again. You got to wake up earlier. You got to set an alarm, start page. Okay.